Welcome to Dogman Bites. Ow! This was sent to me by a friend of a cousin of mine who still lives in Michigan. It's from 2007. My name is Kelly. When my grandma was 93, she got sick and spent most of her time in bed. I was taking care of her at the time. She was on some painkillers and we smoked a little weed, but she wasn't goofy in the head or anything. One day we were watching Jeopardy on TV, and she turns to me and says, "Did I ever tell you about the doggy walkers?" This was new to me. It turned out to be one of the last stories she told me before she died. When her and her brother were little, I guess around 6 or 8 years old, they lived in Curtis, Michigan, which was a pretty rural area of the state. It was heavily forested back then, and they were 3 or 4 miles from the nearest neighbor. They played in the yard all the time, with the woods all around. Sometimes animals came out of the forest, mostly deer, but also rabbit and skunk, possums, raccoon. They were accustomed to seeing wildlife sniffing around. One day they were playing by the swing set their dad had just constructed. It had a short steel slide connected to one end, and they'd just spent the last hour breaking it in. Their squealing drove their mother mad enough to come outside and ask them to be quiet for a little while. So Maggie went into the house long enough to get her tea party stuff. Tony wasn't there when she got back to the yard. He stepped out of the woods a moment later. He said he was playing with Doggy Walk. Maggie didn't see anyone. She set up the tea party, and they sat in the grass around a little cardboard tray with little painted paper cups and a little cracked teapot her mother let her use. She poured her brother Tony a pretend cup of tea. She poured one for herself, then looked up and saw them in the trees. They were tall and thin and really shaggy except for their arms, which had short hair. They stood on 2 legs and had the heads of dogs. She remembered thinking they were just dogs that had learned how to stand on 2 feet. Not so unusual, right? Tony saw them too and blurted out, "Doggy walkers!" and giggled. "Oh, I thought they looked hungry. I wasn't scared. I felt sorry for them," my grandmother said. She went into the house, leaving her brother alone in the backyard. Going straight to the icebox, she pulled out a chub of bologna. Stopping at the door, she went back and grabbed a sharp knife so she could cut the bologna. The doggy walkers were all around the yard. 3 of them. Skinny, tall, dark gray and black, with furry necks and shaggy tails. They stood on 4 feet now, and they were sniffing at Tony and the table. They watched Maggie as she crossed the yard, sat next to her brother, and started cutting the bologna. It was too hard for her, though, or the knife wasn't sharp enough. She was having a very difficult time. Concentrating on her effort, she didn't notice one of the doggy walkers come close. It opened its mouth wide and snapped its jaws shut on the bologna chub. "Hey!" she squealed. "That's not nice!" All she saw was furry backsides running off into the forest. She never saw the doggy walkers again. Her parents didn't believe her and said she'd probably fed the bologna to one of the wild raccoons that got too friendly. She did feed the animals a lot. They made her promise to never feed bologna to a forest critter again without asking first. And that was her story of the doggy walkers. I've been living on the property for 6 years now, and I haven't seen anything yet. I keep a camera handy just in case. If I see those doggy walkers, I want to get a good picture.